And welcome back to the show. We are finally on today. Sorry about the late timing. Had a crazy evening. Crazy evening. But here we are, finally, to do our show. So, this is our weekly live stream podcast, typically at 8 p.m. on Tuesdays. Today starting a little bit late. But before we begin our beautiful little show, let's introduce ourselves. So, my name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella, based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania. Oh no, I have you muted. It's the rush. Okay, there you go.
Hi, my name is Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer.
And my name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and video game developer.
Yes, so we're going to jump right into it today because we're a little bit late, so I don't know, maybe we'll do a speed round of how was your guys' weeks, and was there anything interesting that you noticed happening in your spheres?
Actually, yesterday I played a game called Terraforming Mars, and there's a video game version of it. I played the board game version of it with some people. It was pretty fun. It was a kind of, it's like one of those complicated board games. It's not like Monopoly. There's a lot to it. It's like a million different things to think about. But yeah, maybe I'll buy the video game version of it. I don't know. It was pretty good.
Cool. How about you, Ben?
I can't think of anything, honestly. Nothing of note. I guess in terms of news, I saw that Michael Abels announced as the composer for Star Wars: The Acolyte. Michael Abels, mostly known for his work scoring the like Get Out, Nope, things like that. Nothing else that I'm like that familiar with. So
what is Star Wars Acolyte anyway? What is that?
Oh, so only the most controversial thing, the latest most controversial thing in Star Wars.
Is it a movie or a show?
It's a show. It's coming out shortly. I don't remember what the exact date is. Directed by Leslie Headland.
I don't know who that is either.
I honestly don't know that much about what she did, but the main controversy surrounding her, of course, is that first she made a bunch of comments about it, how this is a story about women, for women or something along those lines. It kind of upset people. She claims this is about it's kind of like a Rashomon sort of.
Rashomon. That's
in Star Wars. Yeah, we'll see how
that's
that works
interesting.
out. But she's also controversial because she was Harvey Weinberg's, or I can't or
Weinstein.
Weinstein. You know what? This there's so many people who I keep getting your name mixed up. Yeah, she was his like personal assistant. So, some people think that, she's obviously guilty, of knowing something and not doing anything, as his personal assistant. So that has also made her less than popular. But yeah, it's a story that takes place 100 years before the Phantom Menace, and it's about, I guess, the dark side and the Sith, but we're not supposed to have any Sith that the Jedi encounter in that time period. And it's supposed to be a mystery thriller with heavily inspired by Rashomon. So who knows what that
something
ends up
tells
being.
me that's just a buzzword.
It's probably. I mean, I could see that actually being the case in a very surface level way.
Yeah, maybe.
Not quite getting the point of we have a kind of horrific murder story thing that everybody has a different opinion of what happened.
Right.
but without like the actual moral principle that kind of undergirds the actual
exactly.
film. I don't think that'll make its way in.
No.
So I can see that being what happens, and we get a story told from multiple points of view. Will that work in a Star Wars Disney Plus show? Probably not very well, but anyway,
I did watch the trailer just now. I'm not gonna say it bodes well.
I mean, it looks okay. Some of
it's
the
kind of
lines...
got the corny vibe that a lot of the Disney Plus shows,
well,
like the...
of course, of course. Yeah. So I don't know.
Maybe that's part of the aesthetic at this point.
I'll watch it. I want to see some like really good introspective stuff if we're gonna like be aiming for
Rashomon.
Yeah, and I don't think we're gonna get that. What did she? What else has Leslie Headland done? She did something like some I think it's some superhero thing.
The name does not ring a bell at all, so I have no idea.
Let's see. Oh, okay. She's sorry. The only thing she's really known for is the Netflix series Russian Doll.
Never even heard of that either. Okay.
I haven't either. And she was involved with the 2012 film The Bachelorette.
I see.
Yeah. Nothing terribly of note. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that's not a dumpster fire waiting to happen. Cool. For me, I just spent the whole week moving, or not moving, packing, and then got my closing delayed again to this Friday. So I'm losing my mind. Hopefully it doesn't get delayed again, because I don't know. I think my brain will like literally like detach in half, and you won't see me ever again on this podcast. I will literally go insane. But yeah, besides that, I don't know that I've been paying much attention to everything because I've been super busy. Yeah, so that's it for me. All right, shall we hop in?
I do have news items.
Okay.
Two things. So, firstly, Nintendo says that their successor to the Nintendo Switch will come out, I think, before March 31st. It's the end of the fiscal year, right? Yeah, so March 31st. So that's kind of soon. Wait. It has already passed March 31st. March 31st, when they released, is when the fiscal year. That's when it ended, right? I think, and they released a like end of year thing or something like that. I don't know when the next. I think they said at the end of the quarter, this fiscal quarter. I don't know when that is. So I got my dates mixed up. So I don't know what that is. But apparently before that they'll release or I don't know if they're going to like reveal like what it is exactly, or if they're like releasing it. I don't know, but I'm very curious to see what it is. I'm curious to see if it'll be like sort of like the Switch 2, where it's like just the same thing, but like upgraded hardware, kind of like what we see typically with the Xbox and the PlayStation, where most things stay pretty similar, or if we'll see maybe sort of differences that inspired by other competitors like the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally and stuff like that. Maybe they'll take inspiration from those devices and maybe change things up a little bit. We'll see. So I'm curious to see how that goes, especially because like this sort of form factor of like larger handheld is new. So yeah. Other than that, South Korea has if you didn't know, they have a Ministry of Culture, Sports, and Tourism. I didn't know that existed, but they are investing into gaming big. So they are. I think I did the currency translation. They're investing $1.27 billion into what is it? It's games, videos, cartoons, and webtoons. So that's kind of interesting. It's definitely like it's kind of weird. I don't know, like coming from the American perspective of like, if someone was like, "Oh yeah, the America has like a Ministry of Culture," like what the heck is that? That's such a foreign concept to me. So
we do though. We have plenty of agencies actually that do such things.
Okay,
so,
I mean outright,
just not nearly as visible. Yeah,
right. I mean outwardly, labeling themselves as the Ministry of Culture is sports and tourism. So,
right,
which is an interesting grouping of things, by the way: culture, sports, and tourism. But I don't know.
Yeah,
that's all I got.
Cool. All right, and because we're late, we're just gonna jump real quick into Nathan's segment where you'll be talking about what?
Free-to-play games and the potential problem with them.
Sweet. And here we go.
Mixed Media Gaming.
Welcome to Mixed Media Gaming, the segment of the Mixed Media Podcast where I talk about, believe it or not, video games. So I'll be talking about free-to-play video games and how I think they're affecting the industry and how I think they might be generally a bad thing. I'm not saying that. Okay, I'll get to the nuances later. I won't explain the entire thing now. But yeah. And also, for those who are in the last segment, the new segment, 99 Crime has corrected me. March 31st, 2025, fiscal year in Japan. So is it not quarter one? Did I just make that up? Is it just by the end of the fiscal year? Maybe that's what it is. So, okay, it's a long time actually before any progress on that is made. But yeah, so before we get into it, let's reintroduce ourselves. So my name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and video game developer.
My name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
Hi, my name is Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer.
All right, so yeah, free-to-play video games. So I'm curious, Irving, do you have any general thoughts on free-to-play video games?
Put on the spot. Not particularly, other than I feel that there might be some debt-driven free-to-play games out there like Roblox that probably suck the air and life out of every other game in the industry. Other than that, I don't really have any other thoughts.
Man, I wonder what happened to the... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, like Solitaire and Sudoku and things like that are nice.
That's true. That's true.
That's kind of my video gaming experience these days.
So. Solitaire steals sales from the AAA titles out there, I'm sure.
I mean, I'm not giving it any money, but I am giving it my time, so...
that is worth a lot. That is for sure.
All right. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So we have some free to play takes, and we'll see. We'll see if they change or they stay the same by the end of this. I don't know. We'll see. So, yeah. What kind of prompted this talk was I opened my email a few days ago, and I saw. I think this was like a little over a week ago. And I got an email from Arc Games. I was like, what is Arc Games? That sounds very familiar. And like, I don't remember ever being emailed by them before, but it sounds familiar. So I clicked on it. I was like, what is this? And it was like, oh, it was a free trial for this game. And so let me go back a little bit in history. When I was younger, I don't remember. It's hard for me to pinpoint what year this was, but there was a game called Gigantic. I think I mentioned this last week. Although I could be wrong. But it's a game called Gigantic, which was released, and originally I think you had to pay for it. I didn't pay for it at this time. I didn't have the game. I probably didn't even hear about it when it was a paid thing. But at some point it became free to play, and it grew. It got a lot of attention, and a lot of people got the game. I don't know the whole story of why it went free to play. Presumably they weren't making as much money as they'd like to. They weren't selling as much as they'd like to, and so they changed the model up to see if that would work instead. I got the game. I really liked it. It is a sort of like, I don't know. it's kind of reminiscent of Smite in a way. So like kind of like a MOBA-y thing, but it's a lot more, but with like an third-person shootery kind of feel to it as well. It's kind of a pretty unique game, and I think it's worth checking out. I was looking at videos of it. You can't really play it currently because the game shut down. It was pretty well liked, and I'm not entirely sure. I was definitely, I was way younger at this point, so I never really thought about it. It just shut down. I didn't really think about it. I was like, oh, dang, that kind of sucks. I didn't really explore into the details of what happened or anything like that. But it did shut down, and so about a week and a half ago or something, I got an email from Arc Games like, "Who are these guys?" And I see it's for a trial for Gigantic Rampage Edition, and I'm like, "What is this?" And it turns out that Gigantic Rampage Edition is sort of like I don't know, call it like a almost like a remake kind of the game. So it'll be the original Gigantic with just some stuff added on it. Like I think there's like a new mode and stuff like that, right? So same thing, but with some additional stuff. So it's coming back, and I was like, "Oh, cool, really cool." And so I realized I remember Art Games because they made Gigantic. So I signed up for the trial, and I actually have not played the game yet. It's actually not even in trial anymore. You can just buy it right now. But it's not free to play. It's not free to play. It is. You have to buy it for $20, I think it is, and I am considering it, but I'm on the fence, and we'll get to that later. So how did that prompt me to make this thing about free-to-plays and, this game is not even free-to-play anymore, right? Well, I joined the Discord for Gigantic, and I saw that there's like a channel for I think it's like feedback or something like that, right? And there's a lot of people who, say, okay, like here are some maybe issues that need to be addressed. Here's some things that you guys are doing really well. But one common thing I see over and over again is people saying, this game needs to be free-to-play. And I thought that was interesting because, well, these people, if they're commenting that, and they're in the Discord, they probably already own the game. And all of them will reference playing the game, right? They'll say, I played the game, whatever, but I wish this was free to play. And the reasons vary. Some of them say, well, I wish my friends would play, but they won't shell out $20 for the game. Or alternatively, you'll see comments like, I wish it was free to play because the player count is apparently dwindling and it takes a long time to get into matches, which was not the case when it first came out. So they wish there was, a more greater player base to let the game go on. People are already predicting that the game will have a very similar fate as before, where either it'll shut down or become free to play to survive and potentially shut down later again. If they haven't learned their mistakes from last time. So honestly, I'm kind of surprised that all those art assets exist from back then. They kept them around, and that they were able to, hopefully they were able to reuse code and stuff like that. And so presumably the cost of getting everything back up and running is a lot less than it was to make the game from the ground up. But yeah, still a concern for sure. And so I was thinking I don't know, a lot of people were citing things. For example, when people would say their friends won't buy the game, and people would say because they will go and play other free-to-play games instead. And some people will say is interesting because they were arguing against it. They were just saying it's irrational that their friends are buying these or getting these free-to-play games because they end up spending more on cosmetics and things like that. But then they'll say a $20 video game is too expensive or whatever, right? And that's cool. Kind of got me thinking of okay, so there's a lot of talk about things like loot boxes and microtransactions and all that good stuff or bad stuff, depending on how you feel about it, in the video game industry. And is this really a net gain or a net loss, or is this something that should be scrutinized generally or not, right? And of course, there are games like Solitaire seem pretty harmless, right? There are no microtransactions, and stuff like that. It's Solitaire, it's a good game. So, yeah, but there are games that have been put under a lot of scrutiny, in the past years where that this has been happening pretty much. So, what is my take on? Oh, Irving's gone. But what is my take on free-to-play games? I think it definitely depends, but I do think that currently how things are going, free-to-play games are actually detractive to the video game industry. And so here's why. Firstly, as a game developer myself, as an indie game developer, it makes it actually really hard to compete. The reason being is that it's a lot harder to get into making a video game that's free to play if you don't have initial funding. So if you don't have a publisher behind you, and even then, actually, it's even harder to get the publisher because your game's going to cost more, or it's going to be a higher risk. I guess you could say, well, higher risk. It'll. So here's what I'm trying to say, right? Let's say you are the developer of Gigantic, and you are Arc Games, and you don't have a publisher behind you. Let's say, although Arc Games does have a publisher, but the case for the sake of this example, you're a small development studio. You don't have much funding. It's just what you and your team can pay yourselves. And so, maybe Gigantic is a bad example because it looks like it costs a lot of money, a lot more money than I would spend on a video game. So, but you're making your game, whatever, right? And it's a multiplayer game, and so you have some sort of upkeep costs like servers and stuff like that, and so you decide to go free to play. Well, now you had to buy a whole bunch of servers, and you don't even know if the game's going to be successful, right? You have to invest all this time and all that stuff without knowing what's going to happen in the future. So you need money up front to be able to, because the goal, right? The goal is that you get a lot of people in, right? And a lot of people get stuck, will stick with the game for a very long time, and months will go by, and someone will be like, oh, you know what? Let me buy a skin for this thing or whatever, right? Let me buy this battle pass, whatever it is. And so you might have the first couple weeks, the first couple months where you're not really making a lot of money because you didn't have that upfront sort of, $20 or whatever it is for the sale of the game. People are playing your game, using your servers, costing you money, and you may still be in the hole despite having many, many, many players. Now, you may be saying, well, what's the problem? You do have the choice to go to make your game paid. You don't have to make it free to play, right? And sort of, it depends. It actually depends on what platform you are putting your game out on. For example, if you're putting your game out on mobile, you're going to have a very hard time getting someone to pay 99 cents for your game, let alone any reasonable price. Your game most certainly will be free on mobile. That's just kind of how it is. It's kind of strange, especially considering that is not as bad on other platforms, right? If you're buying a game on Steam, for example, right, there are plenty of games that cost greater than 99 cents that people will buy, right? But on mobile, even though 99 cents is cheaper than a cup of coffee, right? It is, for tons of people, it is relatively insignificant for a purchase for a game. It just won't happen, essentially, ever. So I do remember.
Really? Is that? I just don't. So I'm only saying that because I played the board game Wingspan, and there's a very strong online community. They have a version of it on Steam, and it's $20 on Steam. But I got it 50% off. So I actually bought something on Steam. Crazy. But you can also buy it on Google Play for Android, and it's $10 on Android. So
yeah, I mean, I think that it also depends on. There's definitely what do you call them? There's definitely niches where you can totally charge people money for things, but generally speaking, for the average indie developer who doesn't already have any sort of following, it'll be hard to sell someone on a $10 app without first growing some sort of following before you do that, right? And even if you do have a following, if I don't know, Activision wanted to charge people $1 for Call of Duty Mobile, people would be like, "No way!" I don't know. There are certain.
That's interesting.
It's very weird.
I wonder, then why? How can you get away with charging $10 for Wingspan Mobile?
I would assume that it's because a lot of the mobile games are geared towards either really sort of they don't have to be good. They just have to keep you occupied for the 10 minutes of in between space where you have nothing else to do, right? So you might not want to pay $10 for that 10 minutes, or it accumulates over time. But you want to pay $10 for something that you don't really think has to be of great quality, right? It just has to be something, Otherwise, I don't know. Your alternative is, if for us, Zoomer brain people who are on our phones all the time or whatever. It's social media is at least free, right? So you could always do that instead, whatever it is.
But people are willing to pay $20 for Wingspan on Steam and $10 for Wingspan on mobile. So
Right. I don't know. I'm telling you, it is irrational. I cannot explain it personally. I think it's totally reasonable to buy things for $10.
I mean, I guess I'd have to imagine too that the target audience for Wingspan is not the same.
Oh, you cut out.
Not the same. The target audience for Wingspan is probably not the same target audience for like Call of Duty.
Right. Yeah. So it is quite the shame. I think it's. I remember back like years ago. It was more common to see video game apps that were charged $1, $2, $3, whatever. No, $5. But I think my guess is that it's sort of like a race to the bottom type thing, right? Where it's like, apps gradually got cheaper and cheaper, and people were using them for, as I said before, they're not looking for the greatest things in the world, right? They're looking for
Flappy Bird.
They're looking for Flappy Bird or whatever it is,
Angry Birds.
Angry Birds, whatever it is, Not that I think either game is bad, but it doesn't have to. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be, the greatest piece of art, whatever. it just has to be okay for however long they're going to use it for, and these things have high turnover rates too. Like, there are mobile game companies like Ketchup that figured, people, you can release the most garbage game. And as long as you're able to release the garbage games fast enough, people will play your game for 3 sessions, delete it, and play your next one. And they're all free. So we'll just do that over and over and over again. So yeah, that is the state of mobile gaming, which is a
quick question.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe this is off topic, but do you think the platforms are to blame partly with that as well, like the Google Play Store or the Apple whatever it's called store?
The iOS store, I think.
Yeah.
That was called? Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Apple store? I have no idea. Thinking about it, so I don't know how. So I really don't know how like the mobile platforms operate in terms of like how do you get seen, and how does marketing look like? How does it look like on them? Like with Steam, it's like, okay, it's about getting a front page is really good. I assume it's a similar thing on the mobile stores, whatever. But how do you even do that? There are no, as far as I'm aware, there are no wish lists. So when your app comes out, how like do you come? Is it curated like by like a human, or is it like AI like metric based? Like people keep searching it, and it's like it's put on the front page, or whatever. I think they actually do have some curated stuff, because I feel like I've seen like descriptions and stuff like that of like collections of apps on the App Store before. So it's not something I've looked into a lot, but so yeah, I'm not entirely sure if the platform is partly based on it, is partly to blame for it. But given that they may be doing things like that differently, promoting different apps, then it's very possible. Although I'm curious, with more pressure to have external payment methods, after the whole Epic Games debacle, I'm curious if, since in-app purchases would no longer necessarily guarantee them revenue, if they would actually want you to actually buy apps now, because that does guarantee them revenue. So I'm curious if maybe we'll see a shift. I don't know. That's interesting. Interesting thing to think about. Yeah. So that's mobile games. Now, when it comes to Alex says, hey, welcome to the show.
So,
when it comes to mobile games, when it comes to not mobile games, when it comes to PC games, which I'm more familiar with, that is the mobile issue isn't nearly the same, right? Like, it is a lot more common for people to buy games. They're not, and people do go after the best games and stuff like that, and whatever they think is best, not necessarily what'll keep them entertained for like 10 minutes at a time, right? They tend to be a lot higher quality purchases, but I think we might also be seeing like a sort of similar race to the bottom type thing, except it's like race to free to play, pretty much, because when you think about it, there isn't a little cost to trying out a free to play game, right? It's like, okay, I'm given 10 options of games to play, and if say one of them is free to play. It's like, well, why don't I try that out before I try buying the other 9? What if that fulfills me, and that'll be fine. And that's a pretty good strategy as a video game developer. It's just very tough to compete for sure. But you have the side effect of well, why don't we introduce things like loot boxes? Which, I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast before. I imagine I probably have, that I'm not a fan of loot boxes at all.
Is there anybody who's a fan of loot boxes that are like, really? I wish this game had loot boxes.
No, I suppose that's not really a thing, huh? But I would go as much as say, though, is I'm not neutral to loot boxes. I think many people may be. I'm anti-loot box, I guess, is what I'd say, typically. I'm not a fan of gambling in places where there are a lot of children just guaranteed to be there, So, Kakaro says, CFOs maybe. What does that mean?
Chief Financial Officer? Like the CFO of a company.
No, yeah, I understand that. I don't know in reference to what. I say?
Loot boxes. They're happy that loot boxes.
Oh, okay. yeah. Yeah, okay, you confirm. Yeah. Oh, man. The YouTube delay, or general streaming platform delay, can make things very awkward. But yeah. So, I'm anti-loot box generally. So I would say that aspect of free-to-play, garbage. Now, am I anti-skins? No, I think skins are fine, Do I think skins are overpriced? Yeah, for sure. It's like,
someone's got to pay for the game, right? Like, that's...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember having the stat for League of Legends. It's, like, insane of, like, the average player spends a lot of money on League of Legends, well above the $60 they could charge if they made it a $60 game or $70 game, whatever, So they're making oodles of money on that. League of Legends, though, I think it's more special case work. Because I think, the longer you play the game, the more likely you are to start buying things, and people tend to play League of Legends for very long amounts of time, It's a very, it has a lot of replayability, I guess, So, so they brought loot boxes in. Skins, I feel like there was a time where there were, when you had like the Elder Scrolls horse armor, it was fine, like $2 whatever, it was okay. and then we're ballooning to like $2 for like, I don't know, like a pinky skin or something like that. So, I mean, people will say things
the
like,
skins cost just as much as a real life outfit.
Yeah. You know what you can get instead of the skins? You can just buy a game. That's what just confuses me. I'm like, why don't you just save like the few skins you buy and just buy another game? I don't know. Alex says, I draw similarities between the gaming industry and the food industry. Too long didn't read. Loot boxes are corn syrup. Okay. Yeah, they're the sort of. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure how far the analogy goes for you, but I guess you could say they're kind of like the accepted bad thing that you kind of just have in food or games, and it keeps you hooked. So yeah, So loot boxes, paying for skins, it depends. Loot boxes does not depend. I'm just anti-loot box, but skins. It depends on what's going on there. This is a point I was gonna make. I completely forgot it. I don't remember. Is this an AI generated image, by the way, for this thumbnail, or is this real?
It is. It's AI generated.
That's is that supposed to be Rocket League?
Yeah, it is.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Midjourney's the best by far. By far. It's like 5 times better than any other image generator.
You can tell a Dolly image, I think, pretty easily. I don't know. They all have the same kind of weird look to them.
Yeah. Midjourney has a look to it too, but I think
it's
it
less
disguises itself a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the prompt here?
Oh, it is... Actually, I don't remember. Let me see. Can you guess at some of the keywords involved?
Well, Rocket League is one of them.
Definitely.
Explosion, I would assume.
No.
No.
Nope. So it is.
Demolition?
Demolition's closer, but not exactly.
Destruction?
No. So it's Rocket League totaled. Like I wanted a totaled vehicle, but I thought this one looked cool, even though there's not really a totaled vehicle here. But
yeah,
that's fine. Totaled YouTube thumbnail.
Okay.
Try to cheat.
We have a what's above the car? What is going on?
Isn't that the edge of the stadium? Yeah, it's the
is
top,
that what I'm looking at?
The overhang of the stadium. Yeah.
I see. Oh, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's not a bad one. But sorry, totally off topic. Actually, speaking of like Rocket League and stuff like that, it's a free to play game I played quite a bit. And Rocket League, well, actually, I got it when it was not free to play. You had to pay for it back in the day. And then Epic Games bought it and they made it free to play. Very interesting move, in my opinion, considering Rocket League was very popular. I don't like. It was like. I don't know why that happened. I don't know. Maybe they did the random.
So they didn't have to make a Rocket League 2, I assume.
Oh, the forever game thing. I see.
Yeah.
Maybe. But I feel like they were still left. Well, there's still a lot of time left before they had to, move on to the free to play thing. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But yeah, maybe Epic Games ran the numbers, or maybe it was because this is the time where the Epic Games Store was like not new per se, but like it was new to, I guess, popularity, right? So maybe it was a way of trying to get people in, along with like Fortnite and stuff like that. It was like, okay, we're gonna buy Rocket League, make it free, and you can, it's off Steam now. You can't get it on Steam anymore. So for all those, it probably makes sense. All those new people who are like, oh, Rocket League is free now, let me get it. It's only one way to get it, the Epic Games Store. So maybe it was a good move on their part. Although, I mean, it's kind of annoying. I think most people prefer it to be on Steam, but whatever. I totally lost what I was going to say. It was really annoying because I had like a whole train of thought. Just don't remember what I was going to say.
You were talking about skins and loot boxes. I don't know if there's something else on that list.
We were talking about the race to the bottom, dev stuff, loot boxes, skins. Not good. Wow, that's crazy. I will say this though. Maybe I can think of it while I'm saying this. I am curious to see how this whole gigantic thing goes. I'm curious to see if they end up folding and making it free to play. I think the concurrent players I saw like last time, which was like checked like a few days ago, I think it was like 4,000, which is not bad, but it was like a lot lower than where it started at. I forget what it started at, but it was a lot lower. So I'm curious to see like what are they gonna do, And I think as a AAA studio, or not that I'm saying Gigantic is not made by a AAA studio, but I'm saying AAA studios do have a lot more leverage in this because especially if they have an ongoing series like Call of Duty, for example, right? It's like or like insert sports game that comes out every year, right? They have a attached audience, and they're a very popular game. People will, they know people will buy them, right? And actually, it's interesting because they have the opposite issue of the indie game developer making a free-to-play game. It's like the AAA studio has, say, pre-orders or an expected number of people who are going to buy their game. It's sort of like an upfront, like large chunk of money given to them that they can even invest further into the game later down the line. It's interesting now because games have this sort of thing where they're not free and they still have loot boxes and things like this and battle passes and all that good stuff. And I think I'm generally anti that as well. And not because I think there's inherently something wrong with microtransactions for a game that you bought, but I've talked about this before. But if you have something like a battle pass, right, which lets you expedite process, and you have to pay for that, what you were saying is that, okay, well, since you have to pay for it, it is good to have the battle pass, right? That is the better experience. And so what you're saying is, yeah, for all you people who pay $60 for this game, you are getting a stunted experience, you have to buy the battle pass for the better experience. Like it's not the it's kind of like not the full game. You know what I'm saying, right? We intentionally made this worse for you, essentially. And I don't know. I think that if you're paying full price for a game, that's kind of strange, to have that done. And it's also weird to think another thing with loot boxes is that you pay you're paying to get certain items or whatever. And let's say they're not skins, like it's something of actual meaning, right? That changes gameplay and stuff like that. And you're saying, yeah, the actual better way to do this is to actually buy the stuff rather than getting it yourself. And so it's like, okay, so is the journey not fun? Is it more fun to just pay for it? Like, what are you trying to tell me here? I think that leads to a lot of backwards design, of how can we, maybe not people explicitly thinking this, but kind of implicitly like, okay, well, how can we, gain avenues for revenue, right? And it's like, okay, well, we can add loot boxes here. I was like, okay, so they can't get these items very easily otherwise. If that was the original idea. They had to change something about the game so they could, have some reason for people to buy something, right? So, yeah, I'm going to keep it short this time because we started late, but that's generally my thoughts about loot boxes and free-to-play games and how I think that it's not doing good things generally to the industry. So, as much as I enjoy playing free-to-play games, I don't think they should disappear entirely. I think solitaire is entirely inoffensive. I think it's fine. But I think that there are many, 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 many offenders, unfortunately.
But
so I would say...
Would you be pro a free metaverse? Would you be pro that?
I don't even know what that means, per se.
A free metaverse.
As in, like, the company Meta?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No. I would not take... You have to pay me to get in the metaverse.
Maybe they would. Maybe eventually your salary will be paid through the metaverse.
Oh, I see. Well, there might be... I don't know about that
one. So far, they haven't done much to convince the world that the metaverse is the future.
Yes, as predicted a long time ago on the show, I said this is not going anywhere. Oh boy! As you were talking, sorry.
Okay, no, go ahead. Yeah.
As you were talking, I did think of another thing when it comes to pricing that a lot of corporations forget, which is that there's a reverse phenomenon where pricing forces scarcity, or pricing. Another way to put that is pricing indicates value. Now, this can be abused, of course. Like, you could make a crappy sports car and make it cost $1 million and then impart a feeling of quality because it costs $1 million to acquire, right? So there's an abusive side of that. But there's also, like, a side of it which is just justice in the sort of, like, virtue aspect of it, right? Where it's like you're matching properly in the mind of the buyer the actual value of the thing with what you produced, or at least what you think it is, right? And you can mess with it up and down. And it gets messed up when you make something free, because it's, as much as we want to say, okay, it's the same thing if we get an average $60 out of our players, right? And this applies to like all the arts, so it's not just a gaming thing. But as much as you want to say, like, look, our $0 premium, but with all these upcharges, gets us $60, on average out of our players, and that's basically the same thing. What you're actually doing is saying that games are worth $0 in the culture that you're building, right? Like you're saying that it's a worthless enterprise, right? Because it's just the way we work. We don't think of it the same way anymore, right? It's the same thing with movie theaters. If you stick to your upcharges as the thing that you're selling, you realize eventually you get to a breaking point, as we got to in cinema, where it's like, I go to a movie theater for them to extort me for popcorn money. Like the movie's actually worth nothing, but like the popcorn, that's apparently but then the value mismatch causes resentment, right? Like it causes, like, people to get angry, right? and so on and so forth. Instead of raising that movie ticket price steadily to follow inflation, if you have a higher value movie, it used to be that if you had a really great movie, that the premium for that movie would go up after it was proven, after it scarcity causes prices to go up. It's crazy, so crazy concepts. But I think, in our like throwaway consumable world, when we end up making, like, it's the same thing with Amazon. You buy the $5 widget and then you throw it away, like, after 10 days because it doesn't work anymore. Whereas if you had bought a $50 widget, it would be something that you might take pride in, not in a weird way, but like in the sense that like it lasts. You can literally hand it down to your children, maybe, if it's that kind of thing. And so you're more particular, you pay more attention, those $50 mean more, right? Like, all these things, I think changes the shape of your audience who's buying things, and altogether, you might be destroying your own industry, in the long term, by saying, this is worth nothing, and the skins are worth the same as the clothes that you put on your back. It's kind of wild. Alex says, Irving, do you think pricing by market tolerance rather than function of input cost is a vice? That is a deep question. That's such a good question. So there's actually a if we're talking theologically, there's a French school of thought that became the primary school of thought. This is in the late Middle Ages, which is that pricing is always just, right? So, like, in a free market, pricing is always just, right? So as long as the market is free enough, whatever like the threshold is, as long as it's free enough, prices always are just because you both agree that paying that much is a fair thing. Outside of that question, when you get into the arts, it gets a little weird because the input costs don't have anything to do a lot of times with the actual value of the thing. I mean, if you take like paintings, for example, right? The input costs are like absolutely abysmally minimal compared to a lot of the values.
Well, it depends how you think about it, right? Because like maybe in low cost of material, but like talking about like Van Gogh, it's like how many hours did he have to train to make his paintings, right?
Even
the cost
then
was quite great.
I mean, Van Gogh would. I mean, if he was receiving, I don't know how much his paintings go for. I don't know. If it's like $200 million or something,
Fair enough. Okay, yeah, I guess that point that is quite a disparity.
I have zero clue how much they go for. Maybe that's exorbitant. I have no idea. But I would say even like with like the interesting problem that we have today is that there's only one version of each Van Gogh painting, whereas like with a movie, you go to any particular theater and it gets redistributed without any more input costs being accrued, right? And the same thing for gaming and whatever other digital media that you're talking about. And I think there's a necessity actually to adding a premium that is associated with the value of the thing on top of just the cost to distribute, or else you'll have the problem that I was just describing where the actual value gets distorted to zero very quickly. So even if like even if like a movie, to distribute it 10 years after it's 10 years after it came out, you made all your money back, and now it's only distribution costs, right, on printing it to the Blu-ray and distributing the discs to wherever, right, however you do it, and it only costs you $1 to distribute that disc. I still think that there's an act of justice in pricing that disc for what that movie is worth, experiencing it that precise way. So owning a movie really should cost something more like at least $10, right? At least, at the very least, right? Given what you're getting out of it, in order to be proportional, and for the medium to continue to survive as an actually valued thing, if that makes sense. That's probably a show for another day, in its entirety.
Just to for the record. The most expensive Van Gogh painting sold at a public auction It's a painting called Orchard with Cypresses from 1888, and in 2022 it sold for 117.2 million.
That's a pretty penny. Oh, that's not ain't bad. Now Van Gogh's not seeing any of that from beyond the veil. But wow, that's incredible. I'm not suggesting that, but yeah.
Yes, 99 Crime says lots of money. Yes, quite expensive for painting.
Now I wonder, do you how do you pay for it? do you
I don't know. I mean, I don't have that kind of cash lying around, in my pocket, so I can't tell you.
You call your bank and you go like, "Hey, I'm gonna need you to wire $117 million, to this particular bank account, like bank account to bank account." It's kind of crazy. I'm sure the bank would be very angry. Do you have to buy the painting? Can we hold the painting? Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. All right, shall we continue?
All right, yeah.
Wanna flow us into the next one, Nathan?
Yeah. Sorry, just random thought. I wonder, do banks? You think a bank would maybe just charge you for that?
I mean, if I'm a bank,
clause. Somewhere deep in the contract, it's like if you're buying a Van Gogh painting, you have to pay a fee. It's too much.
I imagine that's the case. I mean, I think there are actual transfer limits on normal people's bank accounts, but I don't know if you're if you have enough money to have $117 million. I mean, likely a lot of that's credit, I assume.
Or it could be maybe, stocks, right? Know. Could you give stocks?
Oh yeah, liquidate. You could liquidate them, and you're probably pulling the money from a lot of different places, and there's probably credit involved and all this stuff. But
yeah, it said that the owner, I think before that big sale happened, was the co-founder of Microsoft. So presumably it was just, I guess, Microsoft stock. Maybe it was just
pennies.
Handed over.
It was absolutely pennies.
Yeah. So
I want this cool painting.
Alex, I'm pretty sure the rich dude that bought it just wanted a little tax haven. I have no idea how these things work, so.
Would that work? Yeah. I don't know, actually, if that would work or not. It might. Depends on how you do it. It depends on probably which tax professional you ask.
Oh, okay.
There's something called, people don't know this, this is a fun fact. There's something called a reliance defense in tax law, which is that if you use a CPA or any other, there's a few actually designations that are allowed to do this. I think CPA is one. I think some level of accountant's another, or whatever. But if you're licensed as those things and you give advice from your professional opinion and you turn out to be wrong, you don't actually owe that money. I'm not kidding. That's the actual thing. There's a movement of CPAs. I can't remember what they're called. That do this unintentionally, intentionally, if you get what I mean. Where they submit their tax protesters files, basically. They're basically part of a tax protest movement, right? So the CPAs will go and say, well, this person actually doesn't need to owe any money based on how we're filing it. And the person goes, I don't know, my CPA. I relied on the CPA, to do this the right way, and they didn't, so it's not my fault. So I wouldn't recommend doing that because the IRS gets really, really, really mad and tries to destroy your life in other ways. So I wouldn't recommend attempting this path just because it'll get the IRS mad. But it is a thing that is part of the U.S. Tax law. There you go. There's your fun fact for the day.
Where you know?
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching this segment of the Mixed Media Podcast. If you're watching live, stick around for the next segment where we're talking about. Oh, we're doing Arguing with Reddit Music Edition. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Here we go.
Mixed Media Music.
All right, welcome to Mixed Media Music, portion of Mixed Media Podcast dedicated to all things music, with a particular emphasis on classical and on media music. My name is Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and media composer, and I am the main host of Mixed Media Music. And I'm assisted by my two co-hosts, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Ariella based out of Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania.
And my name is Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and video game developer.
All right, so today on Mixed Media Music, we have Arguing with Reddit. And if you're not familiar with Arguing with Reddit, basically my co-hosts have found some hot takes or some questions, something like that, from the internet, usually from Reddit, and I have not seen them, and you'll get my live responses or answers to those things. And I have one that I picked for myself, although I don't know how I'm going to answer it, so we'll see how that goes. So yeah, let's get started.
Speaking of, this one's from you.
All right. Yeah, so let's see. I can remember what it was, but I'm going to pull up the exact wording. So this is actually, I'm going to taking a little risk here. It's about jazz music. This is from r/jazz. And the question is, why do most contemporary jazz singers miss the mark? They say that, and we continue, what do they miss that singers like Chet Baker, Ella Fitzgerald, Nat King Cole, etc. had perfected? They say that a lot of people like vocal jazz, but nobody likes to listen to modern jazz singers. This person thinks that they come off as corny or trying too hard. They want to know what other people say. Now, I did not read all 126 comments. I read many of them.
Spicy topic.
Yeah. No, I'm not sure I really found too many people who actually agreed in the comments with this. And I'm going to also disagree to an extent. Now, I don't really know that much, like, what, the average, like, jazz listener knows. I'm going to speak mostly from my experience with, like, live music and dancing, where I get to see lots of vocalists all the time. And I know some from that sort of world, even if I haven't seen them. So I'm not necessarily the most knowledgeable person here. But you can read the comments on this. And lots of people point out to some really, some particular singers. A lot of people talk about Esmeralda Spalding, his name I've heard, but I'm not really familiar with her actual music. But also a lot of people mentioning Kurt Elling and Jasmia Horn. I don't know who either of them are. But
your name is Jasmia, and you do Jasmia. Oh, that's a stage name. Never mind. That can't be real. Jasmia Horn. There's no way.
I don't know. I've never heard of her, so I can't tell you. So yeah, and there are some comments on this that say that you're comparing like the best of the generation that kind of like established jazz singing as a thing to people now, and it's always going to be hard to like compare contemporaries to like people we revere as being great. Some other interesting comments also commenting that like these singers from the 40s 50s really cemented like what the sound of the standards is, and everybody else is kind of imitating them in jazz, right? And not necessarily imitating them directly, but like that's the stick in which the yardstick against which they're being measured, right? Even though jazz is always a new thing, right? Everybody's reimagining same tune. We have kind of like this, like this is what the tune is, right? When Ella Fitzgerald sings a Great American Songbook, and it's like 8 albums, right, of like all the classic American songs. That's kind of what we think of those songs as being. So I think that's certainly an element. Now I would say, like in my experience with singers who are specifically singing in that way, because you know, my my kind of impression is that a lot of the big jazz singers, to the extent that any jazz singers is big these days, is that they're not really like attempting to be in the same style as Nat King Cole or Ella Fitzgerald, right? And the ones who do kind of stay more true to that style are the people who I think are singing more for dancers. And, you know, well, the reason for that being that dancers want to dance to things that dancers, Lindy Hop dancers, whatever, used to dance to, which is Ella Fitzgerald, right? So it makes sense that you want to, you know, sing in that style. So I do know that, you know, there's a lot of things that pass for jazz these days that are just like in a completely different musical world, and I'm not really sure it's even like what the genre jazz, you know, it's almost like becoming large enough, you know, that you can think of it like classical music, where, you know, is Bach the same thing as Stravinsky? I mean, they're so completely different that, you know, you gotta have to think of them as different things. I think jazz is kind of becoming that way, if it isn't already. Maybe not to quite the same extent as classical music, but so many different stylistic elements within jazz. So, you know, I don't know that you can really compare some of these, like, this more, you know, modern, new age-ish jazz, and I'm probably not using the right way, you know, right term to describe it, but, you know, this sort of stuff that I kind of hear, that I'm kind of sort of vaguely familiar with, I'm not sure that is like I can really like think of as being in the same world as like Ella Fitzgerald or Nat King Cole, singing standards, right? So yeah, they're gonna not, you know, if that's what you're thinking of, well, yeah, it's not gonna, you know, have the same characteristics as these earlier singers, and it's kind of up to you what you like, right? If you kind of like the style of these, you know, of Ella Fitzgerald, and you don't like the style that, you know, this more ambient, you know, kind of fusion with like pop sort of style, well, then you probably will think that the singers aren't as good as the singers who came before. On the other hand, you know, when I'm thinking of singers who I you know, I encounter at dancing, or who do a lot of singing for dancing, and I may not have seen them live, but I've heard some of their music. I will say that, you know, there are a lot of them who are really good, and there are a lot of them who are not so great. But that's probably true of any era, right? We remember when we're still talking about Ella Fitzgerald, because she kind of defined jazz singing for like a, you know, a huge, probably like, oh, you know, 35 years, right? Were there a lot of other not as great jazz singers back then? Undoubtedly, right? But do we remember their names? Mostly no, right? So I don't know that that's necessarily different. Now, I'm not sure I saw anybody mention some of the singers that I like from, you know, from today. I'm a big fan of Hannah Gill, and Alexa Barcini. And there are other singers who are well regarded in the dancing world. Someone like Hilary Alexander, maybe, who, you know, I agree that, like, are they doing things wrong? No, and they're quite popular in the kind of dance world. So, you know, are they doing something wrong? No. But are they doing anything like inventive? No. What if you listen to like Ella Fitzgerald, right? What she's doing is, yeah, first off, she has a beautiful voice, right? Second, obviously I've never seen her live, but when you listen to live recordings, she's very interactive with the audience, right? She knows what they expect, and she's tailoring what she's doing to their expectations, or in contra, you know, or to like subvert their expectations, right? It's very interactive, and then she really understands like how to craft a musical journey with what she's doing, right? With a sort of vocal improv, even if it's not like truly scatting, right? It may just be like, oh, I'm going to kind of decorate this line. I'm going to play with timing. She knew how to take risks, right? And I would say this is probably true of all the great singers from that era that I'm familiar with. Nat King Cole. I'm a big fan of like George Benson, Joe Williams. They're taking risks, but they understand like how to take risks. And maybe some of that is because I could be totally wrong in this. But I think some singers, the singers who are in that kind of style, whom I don't like, and maybe this is true also of singers who are like in a more contemporary style. I don't think they take as many risks because a lot of them are trained as singers, right? And they've gone to schools to study like jazz vocal performance. And I'm not saying like studying this formally is bad by any means, but it does sound kind of sterile from like the less good singers. It sounds like they know, how to be correct, right? And they, they know like have lots of head knowledge, but they haven't all translated it to like being a musician first. Again, I don't really, I'm not the greatest authority on this at all, but you certainly can sense that like when Ella Fitzgerald or Louis Armstrong are singing, right, that they're musicians and they're dancers. Ella Fitzgerald was a dancer, right? And the talent show where she was kind of discovered, right? She was planning on dancing. And then there's another dancing act right before her, and she's like, oh great, I'm not that good of a dancer, so I'm going to just sing a song I know. And of course, that rest is kind of history. They're artists in like other senses first, and they weren't trained as singers, right? None of these people were trained as singers. They have a lot of background as musicians. Again, there are a lot of great singers that I love from today, and I think they capture this. But I think when I think of singers that I know now who they either don't necessarily have a great voice, or they may like have an understanding of the repertoire, but they don't. It's not like a full, to me, like a full performance where it's like I'm a musician and an entertainer first, and I just have complete command of what I'm doing in every sense. Command of the stage, command of my voice, command of like how I'm going to manipulate it for the audience. So the singers I think that kind of missed the mark today, who are in that style, I think are it's too pretty and too perfect in some sense, and not risky enough. But it's not everybody. Alexa Barcini, fantastic. Charles Turner, really good. Hannah Gill, I really enjoy as well. So yeah, that would be my response to that.
Cool.
Before I move on, I have to say, Jasmia Horn is her real name.
No, that's not possible. That's not possible.
There's an interview where she says, "My name is Jasmia Horn, and this is not a mistake. God does not make mistakes." And the interviewer says, "Could you please share the story behind your last name?" And she says, "It was my grandfather's last name. Horn is my family name." And he says, "When and how did you discover your talent?" I was like, "Why didn't you ask about the first name? That's a lot more interesting."
Yeah, right.
I
mean, it's gotta be
Horn being the family name is kind of obvious. Where does the Jasmia come from? So
no way. I was like 99% sure it was a stage name after after reading it. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Maybe the parents were into music too. That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know.
And she also won the Thelonious Monk Institute International Jazz Competition 2015, and I just love the name Thelonious Monk. Is really just what to say. I've heard that guy. I heard that guy before. I just think it's a really cool name. I don't know why. Like, it just sounds amazing to me. And his middle name, believe it or not, is Sphere. That's crazy.
Sphere.
Yeah, Thelonious Sphere Monk.
That actually sounds like a movie character right there.
Right? It doesn't sound like a real guy.
Oh man. Cool. Kai says, yeah, horn is normal. Yeah, exactly. The first name. What the heck? I asked about the first name. All right. This next one's from Nathan, if you want to explain.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is relating to our news item for last week. The title it's from r/music. The title is "How is Drake using AI not a bigger deal to the music industry?" And so, for context on Drake's second diss track, he had I don't know if we explained this last time, but I'll do it again anyways for anyone who didn't tune into the last episode. He had a diss track where the first two verses. The first one was a Tupac sounding AI, which you can hear his voice underneath it, kind of like his style, his like vocal style, but it's a Tupac voice. And then the second verse is Snoop Dogg, AI Snoop Dogg, and the third verse is just himself. So apparently he had to take it down or something. I don't know what went on, but how is it not a bigger deal in the music industry?
This is kind of really getting out of my league here. Started off with jazz, now we're on hip hop. I guess I don't really know necessarily how people are receiving it, but I could see that, in kind of a context of being playful and playing with boundaries. That's one thing, right? Well, what can this do? Maybe it's kind of a comedic effect. Maybe if I use Chat GPT to write a sonnet or something, and kind of a joke almost. We know it's going to kind of be corny, right? I can see that being kind of an attempt to push the envelope and make a statement that way, making a statement by using AI, versus I'm just not even going to attempt to do anything creative at all. I'm just going to say, hey, AI, music writing AI, write me a track for this scene, and I want it to be suspenseful and sound like John Williams. I think that is, to me, a much more offensive use than how can I kind of play around with it? And my sense of this whole hip hop saga right now is that it's kind of somewhat playful, right? It's not it's well, what can I do? And it's not deadly serious, right?
He's not passing it off like it is them or something.
Yeah, it's not I'm trying to create a true masterpiece of art. It's kind of well, how can we kind of engage in this extra musical sort of battle, right? Here's, I'm gonna try this weapon. You've never seen this weapon before. That's my impression. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
In that context, it seems totally fine to me. I mean, other than legal issues, but legal issues aside, having a legal ability to do that, it seems like the kind of thing that yeah, well, here's my shiny new toy.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I just have to read this. It's just too funny. The first comment says, have Tupac's estate / Snoop Dogg reacted to it? Reacted to it.
Reacted, yeah.
And the reply says, Snoop is on board with literally anything that will make him money. He would start an OnlyFans if the company asked him and offered enough money. That's not wrong. So.
Yeah, he started a fun fact. Snoop Dogg was at Rutgers. He performed for something. I don't remember what it was, and he got there it was some stupid amount of time late. I can't remember what it was, and then he left early. And also, he had a Twitch account. I don't know if he still does this, but he used to play I think he played Madden or whatever on Twitch, and he went forever with he left the thing streaming on. He left and he didn't realize it was on. He just left it for I don't know, days or whatever, just on. At some point he's oh, it's still on. You turn that off. So, yeah, interesting guy. I don't really know. He's just completing side quests at this point. I guess I don't know what's happening in his life.
Yeah. Yeah, he's basically using these two guys as voices as an instrument, which is kind of, I think the oddity of it is like you're using someone else's like vocal patterns as an instrument. Like, like yeah, there are legal issues, so just ignore that. But like is that okay? I don't know. That's so weird. Like, it's very strange. Is it the same as just like it's a synthesizer but just patterned to someone's voice? Very odd. Very odd. Few chats here. So Kai says, not that anyone should have known this. I just happened to hear it, but apparently one of Drake's security guards got shot. Yeah, I did hear about that. Yeah, this is not looking very good. However, the guard is still alive. Good. That is good. So it's not deadly serious yet. I mean, that is literally deadly serious. If it's related. If it's related.
Yeah. And also, like, the way that fans take it is potentially probably different than, like, the actual intent of the creators, possibly. Like, unless
in this case, it's a little bit different, just because
a little weird.
Yeah, this case is a little bit different. This kind of harkens back to the bad times of hip hop. So
okay, so that was my question. Like, is this like at the direction of the other camp, or is this just like some fan who is like,
It's currently unknown, like what like the motive or who this person is or whatever, right? Who did it? But I think there are 3 suspects. I think. I don't think that any of them have been caught. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure though. But there's like a million points of speculation. One of them is like, so The Weeknd, who was somebody who dissed Drake on like a couple weeks ago, his manager named Cash XO, that is not his real name. This is in fact a stage name. Someone shot like I don't know. There was some shooting around his house like that. I don't think anyone like died. I don't know if anyone was actually hit or I don't know. I don't know what happened, but it was targeting him essentially, or people around him. And so there's like a theory of like, oh, it's like revenge essentially or whatever for that.
Okay. Well,
that's one theory. I don't know.
If that's like, if things are like in that direction, then like, okay, ignore what I said about like it being kind of a game. Like if it's truly in that level, then not a game at all.
Yeah, no, that's bad.
I think at this point, at least when that diss track came out with it's hard to know. It's hard to understand what's happening, I guess. I think really the only people who really understand are Kendrick and Drake, like people who know what's happening right now. But at the time that the song came out that used the AI voices, to the audience, it seemed like everything was okay.
Yeah, it seemed like it was like a proper
normal,
sportsman,
like,
Yeah.
But it is possible that they
evolved
already
very rapidly to something else.
Right.
Okay.
But I think it might be possible that they knew already at that point that it was not. It was more serious than that. And it's also possible that J. Cole understood from like the very get-go that this was very serious, considering he had bowed out immediately. So, and now he looks like the biggest brain person, like the actual smartest rapper to ever live. So,
it's getting kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think. I think a real concern is like, even if none of them actually are murderous people, right, or whatever. It's like there are people who are just insane and will do things on other people's behalf,
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
It's so weird how we are. I think I blame the internet. Like we like make people our identity. It's like so crazy. Like I mean, maybe it's not the internet that causes it. It's like so prevalent because of the internet. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy what people do for their person instead of enjoying a sport, but whatever. Wild.
Yeah.
Alex says this kind of stuff goes back to the pricing stuff for me. It's weird with music because streaming services create a separation between the sale price and the consumer. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely correct. I mean, the musicians don't even negotiate like the whole thing is messed up. Like is like the like for Spotify, which is probably the most crazy example, right? They let people stream for free with the weirdest conditions for how ad revenue gets like dispersed. And there's like basically zero linkage between the listener and the artist in terms of like economic, like there's no like lockstep, happening anymore. And it's like, how is the musician supposed to know whether or not people liked it or didn't like it, or if it just somehow doesn't drive the right demographic to like sell at, like the whole thing is just like the whole thing is just messed up. Just sell the actual content.
Yeah, because you could do like really well relatively, like wow, I reached like a lot of people, but like total number of listens is like nothing compared to Taylor Swift. So
right,
she makes the money.
Yeah, it's just messed up. But the only reason this is allowed to happen, again, is because Spotify doesn't make money. That's how this is allowed to happen. And I wish Taylor Swift had taken this to her grave, because she would have won the war. If it was Taylor Swift versus Spotify, is it not apparent to everyone right now who would have won that war? Obviously, Taylor Swift would have crushed Spotify overnight. If she wanted to. I wish she would take up that battle again. She would wake up tomorrow and go, you know what? It still kind of pissed me off. I assume their deal that she has with them is extremely sweetheart deal to prevent the implosion of Spotify from a singular artist. So yeah, she could start her own streaming platform tomorrow and destroy Spotify. That's the level of magnitude we're talking here. She could call up Kendrick. They've done songs together. Yeah, she could call up Kendrick and be like, "Hey, you want to start a streaming platform?" And Spotify overnight, dead, absolutely dead. That's how powerful the top 50 or so artists are. And then it's everyone else. It's so strange. It's very weird.
But do you think that this kind of advantages her in some sense, right? Because, whatever deals she may be making or whatever, or in order to keep her, they may be advantaging her in however the payment algorithm works, or whatever, right? And presumably, it's also not just her choice, because I assume her record label would have something to say about it,
Oh, Taylor. I don't think that there's much the record label could tell her to do at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I suppose she's massive.
she decided that she didn't like that the rights to her prior music belonged to someone else, then just re-recorded the whole thing and probably doubled the amount of money she made off the songs originally just from doing that. The star power is crazy. It's absolutely nuts. So she could probably just literally decide tomorrow, I want the industry to look like this. She just doesn't, because I guess maybe it's not on her mind. I don't know. I don't know anything about Taylor Swift, to be honest. But, I wish she'd just wake up tomorrow and be like, I don't like this streaming thing. I kind of want to sell actual records. You know what I mean? Digital downloads are fine, but I want to sell records, and the amount of money I'll make will probably double. So why don't I just do that and just I'll probably just convince every other. I'll call the peace between Drake and Kendrick. I'll broker the peace and say we three should get on a new platform.
I don't know if there's any brokering fees at this point.
Yeah, it seems like it. But there's a lot of money to be had here if they just kind of ventured on their own path. It's the kind of like the NBA, which the NBA itself. Only until in the last 10 years, more or less, have they actually made money. The NBA itself, the teams made money for days, and the players and the stadiums and the TV stations, they all made tons of money, right? But the actual league, didn't make money up until they kind of switched up their paradigm and all this kind of stuff to extract actual money out of the sport. But just pick any 5 players from the NBA and say and they could just get together overnight. They could just call each other up. They're, a lot of them are friends anyway. They just call each other up and say, "What if we just left? Just take the top 5 players, top 5 to 10 players. What if we just left and started recruiting on our own to make our own league?" I mean, the NBA would be dead overnight. It would be toast. There's no amount of star power that could save them from the annihilation that would be forthcoming after that. It's just that no one does it. So yeah, it sucks, in short. Okay, cool. The last one.
Real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I was just doing research. 2 things. They played one of the diss tracks during the NBA.
Oh, that's so weird.
As a background song.
How could you even do that? Like,
I don't know.
And not just be bleep 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 on TV. I don't get it.
Oh, I think it was just the beat. So it's just strange. Okay. I think it might have been actually like that because it has a really good beat. But also, I think it actually kind of fits the NBA actually, kind of in a way.
The horn, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But also, there's a Wikipedia page for Drake Kendrick Lamar feud, and like when you have like a Wikipedia for like a war, like World War II, you'll see like belligerents, right, like left to right side, right, like on the little column.
Don't tell me that there's belligerents on.
It's parties, and the funniest thing is says J. Cole until April 7th, 2024 on Drake's side. That was like a day. It was like one day, and then he left.
That's hilarious.
The other side has Kendrick Lamar. I don't know how they chose this. This is so random. Kendrick Lamar featured Metro Boomin, The Weeknd, A$AP Rocky, Rick Ross, Kanye West. I feel like it's more like amorphous and weird than that, but okay. And they have I guess where their general section would be. It says works and it has their song. I've never seen it before. I don't know what is like. I never. Why did they do this here? It's so weird.
Oh boy.
Medium diss tracks. Wow.
Okay. Interesting. We'll have a casualty section later. That was an unintended double entendre. My bad.
Right. Yeah.
Let's see here. This last one is from me, and it's from r/film composer. It's kind of a technical question. So it says separate tracks versus key switches for playing styles. So the full text is, I am just getting started in film composing, composing in general. When you have a library with multiple playing styles, is it more desirable, to have a different track for each style needed, or use key switches to change styles for the same track? I'm mostly composing in Notion software right now, and if I play...
Notation software.
Oh, Notation
software.
Yes.
Like MuseScore, not MuseScore, it's now MuseScore Studio.
Right, you posted about that. They're trying to rebrand.
Yeah, we've fixed absolutely nothing relevant, but we've added a whole bunch of extraneous features. Yes. Anyway.
Yes, but what is your opinion on this one?
Well, you know what? It's funny if you read this, right? You go back to where we broke off there. I'm mostly composing in notation software right now, and if I apply a playing style like pizzicato in the score, the software handles the switches to the style. Yes, that's the big update the MuseScore created today. You can do this, and that's what they want. Well, in addition to changing their name to MuseScore Studio, yes, you can do this now, and you can also, you know, if you upload your score, you pay to use their usescore.com. You upload your score, and now people can comment on your score and say, "Hey, I like that E flat in measure 5." And okay, great. Really useful stuff when basic functionalities of music notation software are completely lacking, like I described. But anyway, yes. So MuseScore is what MuseScore wants to do. They want this person to be using their software, and then paying to upload it online, because that's how they make money. So MuseScore is looking right at you, user scriptman or some. Okay. You are MuseScore's targeted audience today. Okay. So, but your question is about what do you want to do in a DAW? Okay. I would say the most important question is how complicated your music is. And I don't just mean like harmonically, but like how many of these switches do you need? And like how massive is this score? Like how many instruments do we have? Just like a full orchestra and you're like writing John Williams? Or are you writing for like, maybe a violin and a piano, right? I think that makes a big difference, and I think it makes the biggest difference too. Like not just in an individual track, because an individual track you can get away with anything, right? But if you were John Powell, right, you were writing massive orchestral scores, long orchestral scores, and that is your life, right? Then your approach is going to be different than somebody who's mostly just like, yeah, I'm starting out, I'm gonna, maybe write for a couple instruments and all. Maybe as required, I need something larger. If you are truly handling something really complex, some composers will do, separate tracks, but you're gonna have massive files, and you need to have like a really well-established workflow that like is not going to make your computer blow up. Okay. Otherwise, you'll have like 10,000 tracks on your like one little like 1 minute queue. So generally, for something really complicated, and if you don't have such a really well established workflow, and probably a lot of assistants who are going to help you maintain that workflow, and do all this kind of programming for you, it's probably a lot easier to use key switches so that, again, your file isn't going to like take up your entire hard drive. If you are not doing something so massive, I would just do whatever you find most convenient. And if you are just wanting to stick in notation software, well, you can now do that on MuseScore for free. So there you go.
Nice. Not sponsored. Would you accept a MuseScore sponsor though?
Not until they fix some basic things. Yes, so you could use MuseScore, but just keep in mind that if you actually want to produce parts for real musicians to play, then you're going to have to worry about a whole bunch of other things, which I detailed in previous episodes. You can probably go look that up. You can also, as I learned just the other day, if you don't enter any text, like in the beginning, you put like your metadata in, right? And you like enter composer and lyricist and copyright. If you don't enter any text into the subtitle box, it'll just spit out subtitle. It's the word subtitle on your score. Like, what? I missed this. I went to print out something that I did for myself, in a small project for myself. I printed it, I'm like, wait, it says subtitle on there. Like, what?
You're gonna have to put like a space like every time you don't have a subtitle.
Like, why? Like, I guess said it on our Discord. Like, MuseScore 1, like 12 years ago, figured this out. Like, if text entry is null, then don't put anything in there. Like, I know no coding, but like that seems like a pretty simple thing to do, right? You
said it pretty accurately. That sounded exactly correct.
Yeah, but apparently that's not a thing in MuseScore Studio 4.3 now. So just keep that in mind. Like, you're gonna have to catch a whole bunch of these stupid things if you want to put it in front of live players, or else you're gonna stick it on their stand and it's gonna say like, 1M1 main title subtitle, like.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so keep that in mind if you want to use MuseScore. But you can now do what you want to do for free on MuseScore Studio 4.3. So there you go.
99 Crime says MuseScore 4 must need some better QA. Sounds like it.
I'm not sure they're doing any of it. Like I happened to open up YouTube this morning, and that was the suggested video, the announcement, and it had come out 5 minutes before. And so, like, the first 5 minutes, I just scrolled through I watched the video announcing MuseScore Studio 4.3, and then I read through all the comments, and, like, my goodness, every single comment is like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, I read a comment was like, please, I wish I could like help you test this, because it's like I'd love to like have early access because it's so great. I'm like, yeah, I wish I could help you test it because there are so many things basic things that you're missing. Yeah, so
there you go. Sweet. All right, well, that's our show. If you want to take us out, Ben.
Yeah, well, thanks for listening to Mixed Media Music. And if you've been around for the whole thing, thank you for listening to our whole show tonight, or even whatever part of the show you listen to. We always love having you guys join us, and especially, commenting live. We love hearing from you. And you can join that conversation, learn more about the failings of MuseScore Studio. I have to remember to say that now. MuseScore Studio 4.3. And all sorts of other things by joining us on our Discord. You can find a link to our Discord down there, mixedmediapodcast.com. You can also find the link to everywhere we're streaming and to our locals page where you can support us. Special shout out to our supporters, 99 Crime, K Kairos, Alex Egbert, and Post.
Sweet. All right. Well, we'll see you next week.
Yep.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching and listening.
Look, tell a man no trouble, I don't want beef, man, I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then dead I'm on site. Wrong move, I bet they gon' ride. No need for the telephone hype, nah. No need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no losing. Better watch out for the snake and Judas is. Don't ask them who this is. I bet they know what I'm moving in. I bet I show it into a dim. How you hate and then lose again? How you hating my vibes? Why you wasting my time? Getting hype on my line. Tell a man I don't want feedback, I just want relax. Brand new whip, two-tone, I need that brand new hit. You know, like lean back, brand new bits I live in. We pack, man, you never gon' like us. Get them on sight now, let them on light that way. They know I'm more righteous. Look at my life, I'm living alright. I'm nice, you know I'm alright. Cause looking like Christ, no need for the hype or fight or telephone vibe.